Hello Internet, and welcome back to my reviews of the other DC universe. Last time we covered Alien, and now we've made it to the first of two solo outings for the laughingstock of the Justice League, Aquaman. Released on December 21st, 2018, Aquaman is directed by horror director James Wan, famed director of Fast and Furious 7, Saw, Insidious, and The Conjuring. It is a follow-up to both Justice League movies. Even though Zack Snyder's Justice League is the canonical version of the film according to James Wan and Jason Momoa, the only members of the Justice League who got their own movies in the other DC universe besides Aquaman are Superman, Wonder Woman, and The Flash. There was going to be a Cyborg movie starring Ray Fisher, but that got the boot and never saw the light of day. Same with the completed Batgirl movie. A solo Batman movie with Ben Affleck would have been nice to see, but I'm glad we got Robert Pattinson in the Batman. And I'm looking forward to seeing who is cast as Batman in The Brave and the Bold. This film follows Arthur Curry, or Aquaman, played by Jason Momoa, who sets out to do battle against his half-brother King Orm, or Ocean Master, played by Patrick Wilson, as he tries to bring the Seven Kingdoms of the Sea to destroy the surface world. Joining Jason Momoa in this movie is one of the biggest pieces of shit on the entire planet next to Joss Whedon and Ezra Miller. And that, my friends, is Amber Heard. She plays Mara, Arthur's love interest. She spoke with an English accent in Zack Snyder's Justice League, before shifting to American for this movie. I found this to be very distracting, and it left me questioning why she suddenly shifted to an English accent. Was she Robin Hood from Robin Hood Men in Tights?
And why should the people listen to you?
Because, unlike some other Robin Hoods, I can speak with an English accent.
There's the great Willem Dafoe as Nudus Volko, mentor to Arthur when he was a kid. There's Ivan Drago himself, Dolph Lundgren as Mara's father, the king of the Atlantean tribe of Shovel. There's Jango Fett, Boba Fett, and the entire clone army himself, Tamora Morrison, as Arthur's father, Thomas Curry, who makes a cameo appearance in The Flash as Barry Allen fucks up the entire timeline. There's the queen of AMC Theaters advertisements, Nicole Kidman, as Arthur's mother, Queen Atlanta. There's also Yahya Abdul-Mateen II as a minor antagonist, David Kane, or the Black Manta. Oh joy, another David who's not a wolf boy and doesn't wear a blue bathrobe in nearly every review on this channel. He will later become the main antagonist in the saddest ending to a dying franchise, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I felt that this film is the DC equivalent of Black Panther, seeing that it revolves around a superhero who has to take the mantle of king of his land to stop a war among his people. Not to mention a lot of films in the other DC universe are basically parallels to MCU movies. There's Wonder Woman being a parallel to Captain America the First Avenger, there's Justice League being a parallel to the Avengers, there's Batman v Superman being a parallel to Captain America Civil War, there's Shazam being a parallel to Spider-Man Homecoming, there's Suicide Squad being a parallel to Thunderbolts, there's The Suicide Squad being a parallel to Guardians of the Galaxy because they're from the same director, and then there's Aquaman being a parallel to Black Panther. While this version of Atlantis is visually pretty to look at, it doesn't even come close to what we saw in Atlantis The Lost Empire, but that's just me. This video will contain spoilers to Aquaman, so if you haven't seen it yet, please do so before watching this video. But if you have seen it, sit back, relax, and dive in as we look at the other DC Universe's first post-Justice League solo outing, but it won't be the last. This is Aquaman. Aquaman in the comics is seen as the laughingstock of the Justice League because of his ability to talk to fish. And he even got his own infamously bad video game, Aquaman Battle for Atlantis on GameCube and Xbox. I haven't touched that game, but it looks bad. Like, very bad. I don't even want to go near it. It's like Superman 64 had a gem fusion with Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric. And all throughout this movie, I was half expecting a character or two to sing either Part of Your World or Under the Sea. But this movie proves that Aquaman is more than just the laughingstock of the Justice League. He can actually kick ass and be a convincing character played well by Jason Momoa, who will later be cast as Lobo in next year's Supergirl movie. We begin at a lighthouse in Maine in the year 1985, precisely 1 year after the events of Wonder Woman 1984. It is a stormy night, and Thomas Curry, keeper of the lighthouse played by Tamora Morrison, rescues Queen Atlanta, played by Nicole Kidman. He brings her in and she becomes a literal fish out of water, destroying a TV with a trident, not knowing how to drink a hot beverage, and nearly eating a goldfish. And I don't mean the cheese-flavored crackers in a child's lunchbox. Eventually, the two fall in love, and they have a son named Arthur. Arthur is half human and half Atlantean, son of the land and the sea. And that makes him an outcast among the Atlantean people. The illegitimate son of a romance that was never meant to be. The land and the sea are not supposed to be connected, and they're not supposed to fall in love. Atlanta ran away, or should I say, swam away from an arranged marriage, and the soldiers of Atlantis, who look like if Star Wars stormtroopers made their way into the Little Mermaid to go after Ariel, are tasked with bringing her home. and after a pretty intense battle in a movie about a sumbitch who talks to fish, Atlantis is forced to leave Thomas and Arthur to protect them from the people of the sea. She promises to return, but she doesn't, and she's never seen again and is presumed dead, but it turns out she was alive and in hiding. As a kid, Arthur is seen as an outcast during a visit to an aquarium in Boston, but it's not implied as to whether it's the New England aquarium. After being picked on by bullies, he telepathically communicates with the fish in the aquarium and has a shark attack the glass, and his eyes glow yellow when he unleashes his powers. We then cut to present day, precisely 1 year after the events of both Justice League movies. A Russian nuclear submarine is being hijacked by pirates led by Jesse Kane, father of David Kane, who would later become the Black Manta. At this point, Arthur has become known as a metahuman hero dubbed the Aquaman. Jesse dies in the scuffle, and David vows revenge against Aquaman. And there are points throughout the movie where we cut to flashbacks involving young Arthur trained with nudist Volko, played by the great Willem Dafoe. Queen Atlanta entrusts Volko in training Arthur in the ways of fighting like an Atlantean warrior, whether it be breathing and talking underwater, or using a trident in combat. But he rejects Atlantis after hearing about his mother being executed by King Orvax for falling in love with a human, and Arthur being an illegitimate son. Gee, and I thought King Triton was strict about Ariel going to the surface. Why do you think the background music for this review is Under the Sea from Kingdom Hearts? The underwater sequences are shot pretty well, but nowhere near as innovative as what James Cameron used in Avatar: The Way of Water. I would imagine they used a lot of blue screen for the underwater sequences in Aquaman, because obviously they wouldn't have wanted Jason Momoa to drown on the set of this movie due to real-life actors not being able to breathe underwater. Same thing with 2023's The Little Mermaid. Arthur often spends time with his father whenever he's not doing battle with the Justice League, dropping F-bombs in front of Peacemaker, or complaining to Sebastian and Flounder about how fuck ugly they looked in 2023's The Little Mermaid. They even go to a bar, where a bunch of patrons go up to Aquaman where the audience believes they're about to beat Arthur to a pulp as if it were the Piston Pit bar fight scene in the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie. But nope, they want to take selfies because Aquaman is a hero to them. We then cut to the underwater kingdom of Atlantis, where Orm, played by Patrick Wilson, is the ruler of Atlantis. He is the son of King Orvax, and Arthur's half-brother. So basically Thor and Loki in a way, except Loki is adopted, and not Thor's half-brother. He persuades Ivan Drago to join forces to destroy the surface world for polluting the world's oceans. Oh joy! An environmental message is the last thing I expected from an Aquaman movie. That's like if the Lorax had a gem fusion with Wally and Ferngully, except it's all about pollution of the planet's oceans, from oil spills to a bunch of dipshits throwing trash in the water killing aquatic life as we know it, from the smallest clownfish to the biggest sea turtle. And when I say that some people are dipshits for throwing trash in the ocean, I mean they're huge fucking dipshits. Orm will only become Ocean Master if he unites the kingdoms of the sea against the surface world, but they are then ambushed by a Russian submarine, and Orm uses this attack as a pretext to declare war on the surface world. But Mera, daughter of Ivan Drago, wants no part in Orm's schemes, and goes to the surface to ask Arthur for help. But then, Orm sends tidal waves to the surface, one of which drowns Arthur's father. But Mera, using some Atlantean magic or whatever, saves his life, and this earns her Arthur's trust. Arthur and Mera head underwater to meet up with Volko, who urges Arthur to find the Trident of Atlan, a magical artifact that belonged to the first ruler of Atlantis, in order to reclaim his rightful place as King of Atlantis. They are then ambushed by Orm's men, and Arthur is captured and brought before his half-brother. Orm practically lies to Arthur's face, telling him that their mother, Queen Atlanta, was executed for falling for a human and having a half-breed son, blaming Arthur and the surface for her death. Well, it took until the end of The Little Mermaid for King Triton to accept that Ariel and Prince Eric were meant to be together, after being strict about his daughter interacting with the surface. But at least Ariel wasn't sentenced to death for being in love with a human after saving his life following a shipwreck. And she stayed human for the rest of her days after King Triton gave his blessing to have his daughter marry a human. And this movie has a surprising lack of merpeople, or crabs that talk with Jamaican accents. Instead of leaving Atlantis forever and going into exile, Arthur challenges Orm to a duel in the Ring of Fire.
I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, 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 and the flames went higher. And it burns, 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 the ring of fire, the ring of fire.
Yes, that kind of Ring of Fire. Just like that first duel between T'Challa and Killmonger in Black Panther, where T'Challa is thrown off a cliff and presumed dead. Noticing any parallels here? But as Orm nearly kills Arthur, Mera gets him out of there, and we get a pretty exciting chase sequence where Arthur and Mera enter the mouth of a whale as if they were Pinocchio being swallowed by Monstro. And funny enough, Arthur actually references Pinocchio.
Here, hold this.
What are you doing?
This doesn't work for Pinocchio.
Who?
Never mind. Come here. Get in. Come on.
Great. So we're getting eaten.
The Pinocchio references to return later on in the film when Mara finds the children's book Pinocchio and judges Arthur for it.
I just learned something very interesting. Pinocchio. You risked our lives based on something you read in a children's book?
Wait, it's a book? How about that? Oh, I got it from the movie. Andiamo.
Of course, he's referring to the 1940 film, and not the Disney Plus film starring Link from the upcoming live-action Legend of Zelda movie, or the Netflix stop-motion film. But anyway, Arthur and Mara escape to the surface where they look for the fallen kingdom of the deserters, hidden under the Sahara Desert, where the Trident of Atlan was forged. They find a holographic message from King Atlan that leads them to Sicily, where they look for the Trident's coordinates. And we see that Mara is a waterbender and activates the message by splashing it with water. And if she and Katara ever got into a waterbending duel, I would say with great confidence that Katara would win in seconds. While this is going on, we see that David made a deal with Orm, where he supplies him with Atlantean armor and weaponry powered by water. So pretty much a super soaker with powerful laser blasts that can cause actual damage and harm. And this is where David becomes the Black Manta. No thank you. I'd rather not become the Black Manta and just stay as David the Wolf, thank you very much. Yes, we get it. Your name is David. Every time there's a fictional character with that name, you have to make a huge deal out of it. What did you expect, Shonik? I always find it fascinating to find that there are other Davids out there, like David Cornsweat. Okay, David, just making sure. Orm has Velko in prison for helping Arthur, and he coerces the remaining 5 kingdoms to pledge their loyalty to him and his vendetta against the surface. So while Arthur and Mara are exploring Sicily and finding the coordinates to the Trident, they are ambushed by the Black Manta in an exciting chase sequence where Mara shows what she's capable of with her waterbending skills, even using wine to bash the shit out of the Atlantean stormtroopers. Wine that I was going to reserve for reviewing other bad movies like Green Lantern, or The Flush, or Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. And no, I do not have a serious drinking problem. The only times I find myself drinking excessive amounts of alcohol is for when I review bad movies, like X-Men Origins Wolverine, Dark Phoenix, and Fan Fuck Up 4. Arthur is injured and on the brink of death when the Black Manta is defeated and thrown off a cliff to his apparent death. But we later learn that he survived towards the end of the movie and becomes the main antagonist in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Mara tends to Arthur's wounds as they make it to the Trident's coordinates. They then encounter beasts known as the Trench, showing that the director of this movie is mostly known for horror films and wanted to incorporate elements of the genre into a movie all about a superhero who talks to fish. While fighting off the beasts of the Trench, a wormhole opens and they find themselves in an uncharted sea where we see Queen Atlanta alive and well.
How are you not dead? I have no idea!
Atlanta was sacrificed to the Trench for her crimes against King Orbax for falling in love with a human and having a son. She escaped into the uncharted sea, but she cannot find her way back, and she's been in hiding since. Arthur then finds the Trident, which is being guarded by a sea creature who, I shit you not, is voiced by Julie Andrews. That's right, folks, Mary Poppins and Maria Von Trapp voicing a sea creature guarding a powerful weapon used by the rightful ruler of Atlantis. Except that she doesn't sing soothing songs to Aquaman putting him to sleep. Arthur becomes worthy of wielding the Trident and ruling the 7 kingdoms of the sea. And yes, folks, is the exact same as the 7 seas as told in Tales of Pirates and Sailors. We later get an underwater battle sequence that looks visually impressive in 4K and Blu-ray, but nowhere near as iconic as the underwater battle as seen in Sean Connery's 4th outing as James Bond, Thunderball from 1965. Arthur, Mara, and Atlanta lead an army of sea creatures in battle against Orm and his forces. Orm's followers eventually renounce him as their leader when they see that Arthur wields the Trident of Atlan. On top of a submarine in a stormy sea, Arthur and Orm have one final duel, where Arthur spares his life and has him in prison for his crimes, before they team up against Black Manta and Aquaman in the Lost Kingdom, and before he eats a cockroach in a fucking cheeseburger, which is the saddest ending to a franchise that began with the destruction of Krypton. Orm accepts his imprisonment after learning that he and Arthur's mother is alive. Atlanta reunites with Thomas Curry, while Arthur becomes King of Atlantis with Mara by his side. And then the credits roll with a song that makes me weepy every single time I hear it. That being Everything I Need by Skylar Grey, which I use as the end credit song for Shonik's Invisible Scars. We then get a mid-credit scene where Black Manta survived the attack and he's rescued by Dr. Stephen Shin, played by Randall Park. He is a marine scientist and conspiracy theorist obsessed with Atlantis. Black Manta agrees to lead Shin to Atlantis so he can exact his revenge upon Aquaman following his defeat. And that leads into Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, the saddest ending to a dying franchise since the New Mutants. I'm giving Aquaman a 6 out of 10. While not my favorite entry in the other DC universe, it was interesting to see a solo superhero film about a guy who talks to fish, and is often considered the laughingstock of the Justice League. There's no mention of Aquaman in the DC x Sonic the Hedgehog collaboration, or any Sonic character cosplaying as Aquaman. Jason Momoa made a good Aquaman, and I'm excited to see his portrayal of Lobo in Supergirl. I have no idea if Aquaman is set to appear in the new DC universe, with a different actor playing him this time around. And I really don't like Amber Heard because she's a disgrace to humanity like Joss Whedon and Ezra Miller. But it was nice to see Willem Dafoe make the jump from Marvel to DC, before his ultimate return as the Green Goblin in Spider-Man No Way Home. The underwater kingdom of Atlantis was visually pretty to look at, and I'm relieved to know that none of the actors drowned on the set of this movie given how much this movie takes place underwater. But it doesn't even come close to what we saw in Atlantis The Lost Empire. This film became the highest grossing entry in the other DC universe, grossing $1.152 billion worldwide. It is followed by an animated series, Aquaman King of Atlantis, which is not canon to the other DC universe, unlike the first season of Peacemaker, in which Jason Momoa makes a profanity-filled cameo after Peacemaker tells him to go fuck another fish. Aquaman, while being the least popular member of the Justice League, had a pretty solid solo outing in a live-action movie. Although from the very first trailer, I've noticed a lot of parallels to Black Panther, and they're painfully obvious in the final product, from a rightful king of a technologically advanced kingdom battling a family member for the throne, all while being a badass superhero. Black Panther Wakanda Forever also features the conflict between the sea and the surface world, so there's another parallel. Over the next few months, I plan on reviewing the rest of the other DC universe, in between other film reviews like Tron Ares, Five Nights at Freddy's, Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and Avatar Fire and Ash. And the next entry I'm going to talk about after this one is one of my personal favorites. With that said, stay tuned for my upcoming review of Shazam coming soon. Till then, I'll see you all next time.